Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, wherever you find it, we're watching Listen to this podcast. It is me, Omar Rashan Borja, the Burger Popper. And yeah, we're doing two recordings in one day. I mean, same outfits and everything, just released at a later time. Back again later this week for those watching who watched the first podcast this week with my friend Alex Scheer of the Mac Sports Connection podcast. We're back for round two for something with a new Mac member, with the newest Mac member, just a small topic and whatnot. But again, Alex, I know we're recording again for the second time, but obligatory hello, and how's everything going?
Omar, it feels like it's been 10 minutes since I last talked to you. But things have been going well, my friend. It's so great to see you. And as always, I'm always appreciative of you asking me on, and thank you for the additional platform. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. I enjoy your Mac content too, and I mean, I'm even more invested now that UMass, another Northwestern or Northeastern program, is joining the conference. I mean, I enjoy Northeast football. I grew up in Massachusetts, of course. Holy Cross is one of my favorite college teams, and now I occasionally root for UMass too. I mean, I root for UMass except for when they play Army. But even when they beat us this year, I was glad to see them get one in the series with it,
Sure.
in all likelihood ending. So uh talking UMass today, and I have good relations with the UMass Twitter community. I mean, it's mutual respect, honestly. They always insist that the Army game was never a rivalry when like I insist like, you don't have to hate someone for it to be a rivalry. We share a
Sure.
geographic region. So just excited to talk UMass football and hopefully engage with them through this topic. But the topic we're talking about, short, probably much shorter than our last topic, talking about I guess, a proposed Chicago bowl game, a bowl game proposed by me for that matter. We're talking like there's rumors, of looking at the writer. I know the writer, his name was Connor Pignatello, who wrote for, I'm trying to pull up the exact newspaper he wrote for. It was the Recorder. I think it was like the Amherst Recorder, and he wrote about just all, or the Greenfield Recorder, excuse me, the Greenfield Recorder. Connor Pignatello wrote about the possibility, I guess, everything that's in store from a media perspective with UMass and from a money perspective, whether it be playoff payouts, media payouts. And something that he briefly mentioned was the possibility of UMass sub-licensing content to NESN, the New England Sports Network, and the television home of the Boston Bruins and the Boston Red Sox. And so that, of course, would kind of be something new, sort of a curveball to the Mac media deal, because, of course, the Mac has partnerships with ESPN and CBS Sports Network, which I know the CBS Sports Network agreement was originally a sub-license in itself. I'm sure CBS Sports is
Mhm.
now an official full partner with the league, but it would be different because NESN, of course, is a regional sports network, and regional sports networks are becoming more obsolete, but the ones that are surviving are backed by the teams that air their games or other strong financial sources.
Mhm. So I think when you look at all of this, right, and you understand kind of the ever shifting landscape of, let's just call it what it is, the driver being college football, but it's the ever shifting landscape of all NCAA athletics, right? You see teams promoting, trying to climb up to the FCS level, trying to climb up from Division two to FCS, FCS to FBS. You're seeing these teams continue to try to push it a little bit more, and I think a lot of it, again, football driven. I don't see too many programs who are dominating Division two basketball, knocking on the door of Division one basketball. It's primarily football driven. We just saw Tarleton State out of Texas. They're going to be in Conference USA if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Oh, did that just
and
drop?
there,
Because I thought it was Delaware that moved up. I know Tarleton's been rumored for a long time, but I don't know if
I
something
think
just
Tarleton
happened.
State made I don't think anything's happened. I thought I saw it a while ago. Um, uh, but that being said, I know that they're looking at trying to potentially make a push, and I could be very wrong on that. So if I am, not trying to spoil any reporting there for Tarleton State, but I think they've been rumored for a while about possibly making a push. But yes, Delaware State just joined Conference USA, but they're not doing it because of their basketball prowess. They're doing it because football is the driver, and I think that's the entire landscape of college football and college sports as a whole. Now that being said, I think what we are going to see here with UMass, I I am a big supporter of this move for UMass for the Mid American Conference. I think the MAC needs to find another team to get to 14. Western Kentucky being my top team on my wish list. But I think when you look at how the money's going to drive this, doing things such as leasing games out to NESN is going to be huge. I know that the MAC already leases out with ESPN already leases out game to CBS Sports Network. Um, so we see a lot of midweek action games on CBS. ESPN obviously gets first dibs. Most of those games appear on ESPN Plus, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I think they deserve a little bit more of a national network, especially if you're the only show in town on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. But it gives people a little bit more access than somebody who doesn't have a cable subscription. I see both sides of it, but I think this NESN kind of idea is a good one. I think obviously there's some red tape you're going to have to work out with the MAC because now you're no longer an independent. Your basketball's coming over from the A10, your other sports are coming from the A10. Again, football being the driver, you're going to have to kind of bend the knee a little bit to what the MAC says is okay. But I imagine that's going to be just fine, especially for games that are not run by the MAC, right? If you're playing let's say they go and play Boston College, right? That's Boston College who gets to say, hey, this is where this is going. Or they play at UConn. Well, UConn's going to get the rights on, hey, we're going to send this over to this network. But I think that there's a healthy relationship there. When you look at what NESN has done for UMass in general, I mean, they've done UMass football. They've done Hockey East games, the conference that UMass is in for hockey. Um, I think that this is a good move to do sharing with them because now you're going to get some of that revenue. If I understand it correctly, you're going to get some of that revenue from NESN. And again, I could be very wrong on how this all works. I don't know all the numbers, but it feels like it makes sense because now you've got people in the New England area, the Boston area, the Amherst area, really that whole entire corner of the country, that northeast portion of the country. A lot of those people have access to NESN. I'm not saying people don't have access to ESPN, but when you regionally broadcast a game, now you've got MAC football on a brand new channel. You've got MAC teams playing MAC teams in a region that they were a little bit boxed out of purely because they aren't in that area. Now, with this merger or this bringing on UMass, bringing in potential channel partners, for me, it feels like the right move.
Yeah, and I agree. I know the sub-license in the article was briefly mentioned that it was men's and women's basketball games, which
Hmm.
for this, I think the groundwork's laid by other conferences, such as Missouri Valley Conference, where Illinois State has games broadcast on Marquee Sports Network, the home of
Hmm.
the Chicago Cubs. And I think that partnering, and it's not the games are exclusively broadcast on Marquee Sports, but you have the ESPN Plus stream if you're out of market or if you so choose. Actually, yeah, you have the ESPN Plus stream if you're out of market. And then when I guess if you're in the region, I think it's exclusively marquee. So you still have that national audience if it's so desired. But if you're within the Massachusetts market, or I guess if you're within in the Missouri Valley Conference's case, if you're within the Cubs home market, then you'll have to watch a game
Hmm.
on marquee, I believe. But I think if you do the simulcast and you corner the region, I guess I don't know if corner is the best word, but if you cater to the region by having it on a known regional sports network backed by a franchise, because I think NESN's 80% owned by the Fenway Sports Group. And another aspect of
Yes.
that too is and I think this like my information on NESN comes from the Massachusetts Pirates Indoor Football League team. Um I think a lot of the programming that's on NESN is on eight or not AT&T but Sportsnet Pittsburgh, which the Fenway Group also owns because they own the Pittsburgh Penguins. So that's potentially two new markets that the MAC isn't reaching with RSN programming or with programming on NESN, which I think it's good. I think for football, I don't think many games will be sub-licensed to NESN. I think if anything, you'll get maybe an FCS game, which would encourage UMass to schedule more Coastal Athletic Conference teams or more NEC teams, games that are pertinent to that region and are will reach more I guess more NESN subscribers in New England and whatnot. But I don't think it would be too big of an issue for UMass to sub-license um their yearly FCS game to NESN because that's not a high demand for it, but there's a high regional sort of following. Not I guess not a high national following or not a high following in relation to the rest of the max geographical footprint, but
Mhm.
more so in New England.
So I think when you look at kind of this ownership for NESN. I like your abbreviation, NESN. I was going NESN, but I like NESN better. So we're gonna roll with that. You talk about Fenway Sports Group owning them, 80%, so they're majority owner, and then the Delaware North Group owns 20%. So again, right there, Fenway, we know where Fenway's at, Fenway Park. That name Fenway is forever burned in American history. Delaware North, completely different state. I don't, and I'm trusting Delaware North. Oh, it looks like it's actually headquartered. Fun fact, it's a multinational food service and hospitality company headquartered in where? Buffalo, New York. So, fun little fact for everybody listening at home there. Not even in the state of Delaware, which I thought they would be because that feels like it would make sense, but here we are. So, but again, you're still getting multiple people from multiple markets supporting NESN, right? And these are people who are, if you're an investor, and I'm not some financial guru, so please don't take my financial advice here. But if you're an investor, it makes sense that you want to see your product. So where do you want your product to be? Where you're at. If I'm an investor here in Ohio and I want to invest in what Omar is doing, I want to see his product. I want to have his product available in my region so that other people can see it, so that I, one, benefit financially on my investment because other people are now paying attention. But two, now the product is spreading, bigger opportunities for more money through sponsorships, through viewerships, through whatever it may be. So it's a win for you. It's a win for me to get that product out there as much as you can. I think that almost feels right for sports networks as well. The bigger your product, the more money you're going to make, the better the product can be. This is a good move. You talked about UMass doing the FCS games and hosting those on NESN. Huge opportunity. Now you've got people who can't make it out to Amherst to watch this game. Now they can tune in at home. Um, so for me that makes sense. Now again, I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of licensing that they're going to have to work with the MAC because they will now officially be a MAC school. So they've got to get MAC approval, things like that. So it's not with them not being a football independent, a lot more red tape, I'm sure. However, and then the MAC, of course, will get their slice of the pie from that game. However, I think doing this way, subletting these FCS games or games with other Northeast area teams, that's going to be a huge, huge opportunity because now UMass, there's going to be a little bit more that they're playing for. I mean, independent, as an independent equivalent of a G5 program, you were never going to make the playoffs. Let's just call it what it is. Now you're in a conference. A little bit more is on the line, a conference championship, which UMass hasn't done since they were FCS or Division One AA when they won a national championship. A lot more is on the line, bigger stakes, bigger opponents. You're going to have to schedule, I don't want to say tougher, but you're not going to get to play. I mean, they've already played a mostly max schedule anyway. Let's just call it what it is. But you're not going to get to play whoever you want now. Now you've got parameters and you have to schedule accordingly. Now you're kind of forced to say, hey, which marquee matchups, even with FCS, which ones are big ones that are going to bring in more money? Now you're forced to look at that. And I love that. I think that's good for UMass. And I think it's good for those FCS programs too. It's hey, UMass wants to schedule us. We got to bring a show.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, something I've liked with UMass is them, and I think something that's like good for them is like scheduling the Northeast school, especially the Northeast Conference, where like the Northeast Conference, I jokingly told one of my friends, Bobby from TNT College Football, where we're talking about Chicago State, and we're talking about how bad the NEC is, and
Hmm.
he said that Chicago State could legitimately win the NEC, and I said, yeah, I mean, and the NEC is like essentially Conference USA in the FCS. Where, with that being said, it's like these programs don't have high demand, and it's an easy way for UMass to have a paycheck game without having to break the bank. I think their two paycheck games against Central Connecticut State this year and Wagner
Hmm.
are like a combined I think it's under 600,000 to be honest. I think they're paying those schools under 600,000 when you look at other payouts for FCS schools like a lot of schools are paying more than 600,000 for one FCS game.
Hmm.
So it's definitely something that helps UMass and just incentivizes them to schedule, the maybe
Correct.
not Connecticut, but the Merrimacks, the Stonehills, or yeah,
Hmm.
Merrimacks, the Stonehills and whatnot, the teams that are within um the Red Sox and Bruins is geographical market as designated by their respective leagues. So I definitely think it's like a great idea for sure. And I mean, I agree with your points in terms of exposure and there being more to play for these games, where it's like I'm sure a lot of kids that are recruited by Merrimack and, Stonehill or like teams in the NEC, a lot of those guys are, probably grew up playing multiple sports, probably grew up playing basketball or not basketball, probably grew up playing football, grew up playing hockey
Hmm.
too. And for those players to appear on NESN, locally recruited FCS guys just gives them more to play for, to be honest with you. Playing on the network that your favorite teams played on night after night, just given the length of those seasons. Something I want to, oh,
Absolutely.
yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I agree with you 100%. That's all I really had to add to that.
But something I wanted to add to from a college basketball perspective, going from the UMass, I guess comparing media deals, the UMass's deal, or I guess the A10's deals with NBC in essence, which ended up being USA, most of your games on the USA network. And of course CBS Sports Network. I think UMass is getting much better exposure, especially like when I look at the aspects of the deal with USA, where USA, I just looked on Wikipedia at their current programming. They have one scripted show that's still running, I think. Um, and I can't imagine that much advertisement goes into um I guess Atlantic 10 games that happen on USA. I guess on the flip
Hmm.
side, not only having games on NESN, of course, there's an advertisement. If you have a pulse and you're a sports fan in, New England, you have NESN, you're watching NESN. That's advertisement for UMass, Olympic sports.
Yep.
Additionally, too, I mean, just looking at in general, just the advertisement being there on CBS Sports Network too and whatnot. So I guess it's turned into a broader discussion, but I want to see your perspective too. I guess like comparing, like, I guess having those games like regionally sub-licensed off a USA Network, off a CBS Sports Network, and like on to NESN for like the Olympic sports.
So I think it's important when you're looking at what makes sense. Um, we've seen we just saw it this last year with Barstool combining with CW to put on sports productions. And I think that made sense for the bowl game. I think we saw WB put on some basketball as well. I didn't pay too much attention to what they did. Um, but I think when you look at how to kind of sublet things and things like Olympic sports, I think it's very, very important. There's a fine line you have to walk. You don't want to oversaturate one station and just have it become the home because that's when you get into issues with your conference. Now, I know here in the Toledo area, there's the Buckeye Cable Sports Network. They cover when called upon, they cover Toledo games, they cover Bowling Green games. But it's usually some sort of deal with ESPN or CBS where they're like, "Hey, we're going to contract your company to kind of host this and be the crew on the ground. However, we're going to be the ESPN folks kind of running it." So I think you want to be very careful because once this is where if UMass had done this and they weren't in a conference, all for it. You become USA and whatever becomes the official home of UMass athletics. That means Olympic sports, that means football, that means whatever. Um, Now that you're in a conference, you got to be careful with that because there are going to be licensing agreements that you now have to go through the Mid-American Conference for. Um, so I think when you look at how to make that happen, I think it's the right move. You just have to be very delicate with how you approach it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just think in terms of advertising, like when you look at I guess where the A10 is, like I'm not saying CBS Sports Network because that'll be like circular, like was bad at advertising their stuff
Sure.
because they have Mac stuff, but I feel like the main partner for the A10 was USA Network. And like I
Hmm.
don't know if a lot of people because I feel like a lot of USA's promotion being owned by NBC would come from NBC. Because in
Correct.
general, if you're a sports fan, I mean, I guess the only reasons like if you're a sports fan to watch USA, um, would be wrestling. And I think the point I'm trying to make is like the diehard fans that want to watch UMass, want to watch the MAC, want to watch the A10 will always be there. The fight for every conference is getting casual fans to enjoy your product, to get the type of fan that likes Michigan because they like the winged helmets that they like, Tom Brady. Get that type of fan drawn into your conference. That's always a challenge for conferences because the diehards will always be there. So I guess with
Hmm.
that being said, it'll be easier for UMass to get the casual fans in New England to
Sure.
care about their program if their games are on NESN than on USA because USA until recently, honestly, they were known, I guess, as like the network. I know them as a network that airs a lot of Law and Order reruns, and I'm sure that's how a lot of people.
Yes.
And it's ironic. It's ironic because the Mac partners with CBS Sports Network, which is famously, which is the bane of my research. They're not Nielsen rated. The CBS Sports Network is not Nielsen rated, but
No.
when a sporting event's on CBS Sports Network compared to USA, which is on a lot of basic cable packages. With that being said, I think in general the Max agreement is better than the A10, not just from money perspective, but from exposure and especially the sub license. If the Mac would sub license one, I guess FCS game for UMass a year and some college basketball games, especially from the basketball and Olympic sports perspective, the sub license would be beneficial too because I feel like it's always good. You don't I think you don't want to give fans two boundaries like to watch the Mac if you're a UMass fan. Like you don't want to tell them, okay, you have to subscribe to ESPN Plus and subscribe to cable because you're a Red Sox and Bruins fan. I feel like having the
Hmm.
options to choose between one barrier is always beneficial, which is why I brought up the Missouri Valley Conference example at the start.
So and I don't disagree with you. I think the problem with the Valley Conference and is there's two Missouri Valley conferences. You've got the Missouri Valley Conference, then you got the Missouri Valley Football Conference, which are from my research, and I know you've looked into this probably a little bit closer, are technically two different conferences. One is a football dedicated conference, whereas the Missouri Valley Conference, that's their what's their heavy hitter? Basketball. Now that UMass is in a conference where football is the financial driver, I think that's where it gets hairy. I'm not saying what you've got is a bad idea. Frankly, I love the idea. If the MAC can work out something where UMass can sublet games out to uh, NESN, I love that idea. I think it's the right move. Like you said, it puts more eyeballs on a product that people can start to care about and they're not paying additional for an ESPN Plus or whatever. I really would love to be a fly on the wall for these negotiations because I really think that there's something here. And I think that these conferences and these conference players really have an opportunity to kind of break into those markets a little bit more if they do it the right way. But as we all know with football and with money, what we think is the right way is much different than what they think is the right way. And that's because there's so many other data points they have access to that we haven't even thought of, right? You look at, we look at stuff like TV ratings and, revenue sharing and things like that. I'm sure even the athletic directors and the presidents of these universities are looking at numbers that say, how many bags of popcorn did we sell to little Sally during that game this week? They've got details all the way down to that point, and I think it's important when you look at that as well because all of that factors into who gets to do what. And it's who gets to license out games, who gets to host games, who gets to call game. I mean, there's just so many factors that go into it. And we have to remember if this was the Big Ten, they could say, this is what we want. This is the MAC who has to say, we'll take what you're willing to offer. And I think that's a bigger part of it as well.
I would agree that there's like so much more than we're even like thinking about too, I guess, in the simple. But I guess given the information we have, it does seem like a definitely good idea. And something else I forgot to bring up too is with me following the indoor football scene, I guess on a fairly like deep level, noticing one thing with the Massachusetts Pirates, they have their agreement with NESN, where I mean their games are broadcast live, but like looking at they had a broadcast schedule for this week, and on the schedule they had their home game. Of course, the game's still streamed on YouTube and whatnot, but for those with NESN, I guess as an advertisement for the team itself, they had their home game from Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern time, 10 p.m. local time, as you know,
Mhm.
on a tape delayed process. So it's like I guess if UMass were to have a deal like that, where like they have every single home game, where like I guess ESPN Plus has live exclusivity, but I guess we get rebroadcasts on NESN where it's like honestly an advertisement where it's like, oh, well, I missed the UMass game. Here I can catch it later, either on tape delay, late on a Saturday night, or late on a Sunday night, even, or even during the week, in a way.
Mhm.
I think that does great to advertise not only UMass to the region, but the whole MAC in general. Because of course, I mean, in the games that I guess ESPN Plus or CBS Sports Network will broadcast live, there will likely be a MAC team there. So I mean, I think just in general, like even if it's not a sub license of live events, if they can do a rebroadcast of these games, I
Yeah.
think it would do a huge service. And that seems like that's what NESN wants to do. I guess they just want live programming or something that's somewhat live, um, of teams of local interest.
So I love the idea of tape delay broadcast. Um, I think you're 100% right that that could be a huge additional moneymaker for NESN. Huge opportunity for them to just rebroadcast. Hey, did you see the game last night? Oh, well, NESN's airing it again tonight. Make sure you check it out. Um, and I think that that would go a long way in terms of that revenue, in terms of really people getting opportunities to put their eyes on a product. Because even if you get, I don't know, let's say 400,000 watching the game the first time it goes through. Then you watch the rebroadcast, 100,000 people watch it. Rebroadcast it, I don't know, a second time, 50,000 people. That's 150,000 more people that have your eyes on your product than had their eyes on your product 2 days ago. To me, that's a big step. So I love the idea of a rebroadcast just to get people interested, just to get more eyes on what you're doing. I can't hear you, Omar.
It's hit and miss. It's always hard to find rebroadcasts of games. It's hit and miss. You can find maybe you'll find a game on YouTube, from some guy that liked that team a lot, and it's like, we put this game on YouTube. That's always how it goes. So rebroadcasting is definitely huge. And even then, like as a college football fan, I guess as a casual fan, there's so much happening on a college football Saturday. The schedule, as we
Mhm.
all know, so vast and everything that there's naturally going to be other games to catch your attention, but having that chance to watch a second time, or not even a second time, but watch later on when there's less college football games, something I remember, I know this tape delay sort of format, I think it works well because I remember Columbia when I was in college in New York. Of course, I was in the SNY Sportsnet New York. I was in SNY's broadcasting territory, so it was on my YouTube TV guide. And I remember just flipping channels one time on, I think it was like a Saturday night, because like I think the Saturday night games I was watching were just like there's a couple out of contention. I saw a rebroadcast from Columbia beating Penn earlier that day, and like of course I love the Ivy League, so any chance I get to have the Ivy League on the screen, it's like it's there. So like I mean I just think it's great, situations like that too. I guess from like a personal perspective, um,
Yeah.
but I guess all this is to say, like, yes, I'm aware of like the full situation. with a lot of RSNs, especially the Valley Sports RSNs. They're not in a good way, and I don't want to seem tone deaf or unaware of that at all. I mean, it would be wrong to, and it would be like I guess bad in like our journalistic integrity to do so and ignore that. But I think anytime that you have the chance to partner with a stable RSN, regional sports network, uh, for simulcasting, whether it be like the Missouri Valley Conference has with Marquee Sports Network that's owned by the franchise. So it's in the franchise's keep that channel alive, and especially now with NESN 2 owned by Fenway Sports Group, who now owns two RSNs. I think it's just something that you should do, honestly, and it's gonna take some creativity, like we established, like during this, like with whether it's rebroadcast or whatnot. But I really think this format could work, and just looking at the reaction of UMass fans that I've seen, they've reacted positively to this possibility with fascination because I think like NESN, it's one of those things you connect it with the franchise too. So it's like I guess more so than a Valley Sports Network. Like when people say the Yes Network, you think the Yankees immediately. When people say NESN, you think the Red Sox and you think the Bruins immediately. So I think it's just it's not UMass is doing that NESN has that stature, but I think it's wise that they are partnering, that they're looking at the partnership.
You want to attach yourself to something with that identity just to be safe because once people know that your product is available through that parent product, it's I mean that's a good thing because especially if people have those positive views. I mean, you talked about Valley Sports. I'm being a Cincinnati Reds fan. I've been hit or miss with the Valley Sports network, but when they've been on, they've been on. And I thought they've done a great job. I was not a fan of that buyout by Fox, or buyout by Bally over Fox, because I always loved the Fox productions of Reds baseball games on TV. Fox Sports Ohio specifically. But I really think, when Bally's on, they do a really nice job. And I think that's the thing with NESN is obviously I'm not familiar with their product. From everything I've seen, it looks like a quality product. And I think that that's going to be important moving forward is if you're going to attach yourself to that, you want to make sure that the product's quality, both if you're attaching yourself to it, but if you're NESN, if you're bringing the product on. I think we're going to see obviously good UMass basketball. From everything I've been seeing, it looks like UMass is heading in the right direction for football. So that's a positive. But we'll see. I think you know, that if that arrangement can happen, ESPN could sub-license all of that, and that's a huge win. Because obviously, again, the MAC deal, and I want to say the MAC deal will probably be renegotiated when UMass joins. Right now, the MAC schools make about $800,000 a year, um, in the group of five from the ESPN deal, um, which sits behind the Mountain West and the American Athletic Conference. I want to say it sits behind um, the Sun Belt as well, but I could be wrong. I think the Sun Belt makes about 1,000,000, but Conference USA sits at about 700,000. So, I mean, you're talking about it being a step up. I mean, I think it's a good move for UMass financially, especially with the extra distance they're going to have to travel. Um, but I think anytime you can attach yourself to a quality product, it's a good move. I think this is a good move for UMass. I think this is the right move for UMass. And if Bamford can get the MAC and ESPN to work with him on subletting to NESN, that's a home run.
So I guess we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, we both think it's a beneficial partnership, and think that from a wholesale media rights perspective, I think the Max deal is definitely like it's just definitely better. That's not the fashion that we've done. It's just like the situation they're in. With NBC shutting NBC Sports Network or Peacock, and the Peacock putting their collective energy into Big Ten. They got jettisoned to USA, a leg of NBC that has been in decline for years. And generally it's just not thought of as a sports network. Perception helps a lot in terms of sports. So I think it's totally beneficial. I'm excited to see how it exactly shapes out. Alex, I guess for the second time today, do you have anything final to add? Any further advertisement you'd like to do?
Yeah, first off, I think, it'll be fun to see what direction this goes. Um, I think we'll see. I'm excited. I'm so excited for UMass to join the conference. I think they're going to be a massive force in basketball right away. And I'd love to see their football kind of move up the ranks. It's been fun being a Mac football fan with so many different champions. It would be cool to see UMass kind of join the mix of potential champions as well. But no, again, as always, thank you so much for having me on. I always appreciate our conversations. Always a lot of fun. You do a great job with what you do, both writing and with coming up with interesting topics to talk about and to kind of break down. So I'm always appreciative to you, Omar, for having me on and to talk these things. But yeah, guys, if you liked, didn't like, want to argue with me on my opinions, want to tell me, hey, you idiot, you can visit me over on Twitter, Twitter X at the MSC Podcast. Same handle against across all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, MSC Podcast. Um, got a few cool things in the works. I've got a video dropping soon, and so I am gonna promo this. Got a video dropping soon. Alex spends a day with Miami field hockey. So it's gonna be about a 5, 6, maybe 7 minute video, um, where I went down, I took in a Miami field hockey practice, um, and then got a one-on-one coaching session with one of their assistant coaches, where I learned how to play elements of field hockey, where I learned kind of not the nuances because I'm very much an amateur, but I did learn a little bit about the sport, about how it kind of all operates, and just a great opportunity to go down to Miami and to be in Oxford, and appreciative to that team. I also got to take shots on alumni goalkeeper who was a 2022 All-American, and you guys will get to see how I fared in that moment, my one shining moment, or not so shining. I guess you guys will have to tune in and check it out. But Omar, as always, man, I really appreciate you having me on, letting me kind of talk my perspective from the Mid-American Conference. I certainly try to be a voice of reason, and I just appreciate the chance to speak on this conference that I love.
Quickly responding, and be able to schedule have the time on a Sunday afternoon just to talk Mac ball for almost 2 hours and everything. But it's a labor of love, and I really admire too you bringing attention to just Olympic sports, especially like Olympic women's sports too, sports that we might, of course, be a big football guy. I am much less than a layman on field hockey, but I'm excited now to learn about the game too. I mean, and just you know, not to see you shoot on All American, but just learn about field hockey in general. I mean, and learn about just Miami Ohio's program with that. So I'm excited too. I mean, just make trying to think. It's sad that I have to consider this, but I don't even think Army had a field hockey program. I guess that's how little I know about field hockey. So I'm just excited to just dip my toes into the field hockey world of this video. So I'm excited for it to come out. I certainly will share it. But yeah, thanks again, Alex. Really appreciate it. Stay tuned for this and more off-season content. We're slowly getting closer. I know Michael from CFP campus tour mentioned we're 5 months, literally 5 exact months from week zero.
Hmm.
There's no MAC action that week. Uh, but even then, it's just college football. So yeah, I mean, we're closer than we think, closer to not talking about topics like this than you think. Um, but until next time, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Peace, love, and soul, and I'm the